Welcome. This is video 36 on artificial gravity, which I know is kind of a weird topic, but you'll see why we're talking about it right here. This unit is really all about the link between circular motion and gravitation, and so hopefully you're going to see how this works together. Artificial gravity seems weird, but it'll make sense as we go through it. So we're going to start off with this roller coaster here, this kind of crazy roller coaster. I don't know what the heck that duck is doing sitting on the top there. We're not going to use the duck. Don't freak out. But I want to just kind of let you think about this roller coaster in a couple of different places here. As you are going up the hill here, so let's imagine that you are right there, that your car is right there. Wouldn't you agree that the gravitational force is acting straight downward, as it always does, and that the normal force is acting perpendicular to the surface, because that's what normal means, right? And so you can see that they're offset there. And so there is a bit of a net force going back down the hill. We called that the parallel force, if you recall. And that's why to get you to go up the hill, they have to have some sort of motor or engine or something that pulls you up, because you have to be able to overcome that net force down the hill to be able to move up the hill. So everything's great. You're going up the hill. Everything's fantastic. You're freaking out a little bit. If you're sitting next to Mr. Lenz, he's screaming like a little girl, because that's what he does. I'm just kidding. He doesn't do that. He's actually very quiet on the roller coasters. I don't get it. But you'll have to see for yourself when you come to Six Flags. Anyway, so everything's great. You get to this point, and then the big drop occurs. And so let's take a look at what happens here with the forces. So there's your car. Okay. Wouldn't you agree gravitational forces are still downward? They're still the same. I tried to draw them the same as I could. But the normal force is like this. This tiny, tiny, tiny little force, and it's perpendicular to the surface right there. So wouldn't you agree that most of the force that you're feeling is really just straight down? In fact, that's that feeling you get of being in free fall, especially on those very steep roller coasters. It feels like you're just falling. And that's why, because there's almost no force causing you to go in any other direction other than down. And so they basically just try to get out of the way and let gravity do as much work as possible. Now you get to this point here. All sorts of weird things happen when you get to this point, right? Gravitation's still straight down, no big deal. But your path for this car right here, and I'm going to switch colors so you can see what I'm talking about here. This car and its inertia want to go this way, right, in a straight line at the same speed. But the thing that's causing it to change its motion is now the track, right? And so the track not only has to be able to push up against the force of gravity, but has to be able to change your motion. And so it has to apply a net force in the upward direction, up, to try to stop you from going along that straight path. Can you imagine how bad it would be? How terrible the roller coaster would be if it just allowed you to go straight down into the ground like that? That would be terrible. And so the track's job right there is to try to apply a large force to be able to get you to go in a curved path. Now that large force right there is what causes you to feel like you're pushed into your seat, because your body really wants to go straight down that blue line, but the track is trying to change that motion away from that straight line. And so it has to apply this huge force, and that's why you feel when the seat pushes up on you really hard, but your body wants to go straight down, but the seat is pushing up on you really hard. That's why you feel like you weigh so much, because of that extra normal force. Do you weigh more? Of course not. It's not like you were on your way down, you were eating lots of hamburgers and cheeseburgers and pizza and drinking lots of soda, and so you gained all this weight, and then now you weigh more? That doesn't make any sense. The only thing that makes sense, because the force of gravity has to be the same for you and the car throughout the entire thing, is the normal force is changing. And so let's keep watching what happens here. So let's imagine now you're here on the car, in the car. So you're on this side. Now, what? Gravity's still down. Is that a surprise? No. It's the same. Always the same. Doesn't change, no matter what your motion is, right? Speaking of motion, you are now moving this way, right? So your car wants to go that way. So the normal force has to be perpendicular to the surface, and so you get this tiny little force going that way. Not a lot going on there. But look what happens when you get to the top here. right underneath Mr. Duck or whatever. I don't know why the dude is there. Anyway, so there's your gravitational force still down, not a surprise. Now what's the normal force? Where does it go? Well, the track is sort of pushing you down with a tiny little normal force. So what happens when you get to the top here? You feel weightless. Why? Because there's really almost no normal force acting on you right now. Did you, from here to here to here, did you lose a lot of weight? Did you shed a lot of pounds? Did you sweat it all out? No, of course not. So your weight hasn't changed, your mass hasn't changed, and therefore your weight, right? So it must be the fact that the normal force is different. In fact, the normal force right here is basically almost zero, so, because you become almost weightless, or you become almost stopped at that point. Then you continue along the path because you're not stopped. That would be a terrible roller coaster if you stopped right at the top there. Don't ever ride that. Whatever that is, don't ride it. Anyway, so you keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, and then you get down here. All right, gravity is still down. There's a tiny little normal force in towards the center. And then you get to the bottom here. Now look what happens at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to change colors again. Your car wants to go straight down. Your body wants to go straight down. Are you going to be allowed to go straight down? I hope not. So what's the thing that's stopping you from going straight down? It's the track. And so the track has to apply a huge normal force to be able to get you to go straight down. Is that because you gained a lot of weight? No. Isn't your weight exactly the same? Force of gravity, force of gravity, force of gravity, all the same throughout the whole thing? Yes. So why is there an extra normal force? Because it's changing your motion from this line here to this line here. So now you're going in that direction. So to make it go from this way to this way, there had to be a lot of force applied to it. And that's that extra normal force. And how do you feel when you're coming out of the loop like that? You feel pushed down into your seat. Why? Are you actually being pushed down? Is there somebody on top of you pushing you down? No, it's not that. It's your body wants to go in a straight line at the same speed, and the track is not letting it. And so the track has to apply extra added normal force upward. Normal force has to be much, much bigger, and that's what causes you to feel squeezed in. And so you can do this throughout the entire track. That's why roller coasters were invented. They don't change the gravitational field. They don't change how much you weigh. They change how much normal force you feel. And so here's the trick, okay? So weightlessness, or the feeling of weight, this is the big thing here. The feeling of weight comes from what? When I say I feel like I weigh more, comes from the normal force. That's the big payoff here, the normal force. So that's huge, okay? Roller coasters play around with the normal force. That's their job, right? That's what makes you feel weird. When you feel like your stomach's up, raised up in your chest a little bit, that's the fact that you don't have much normal force acting on you. You feel like your stomach sinks down, you feel like you're squeezed into your seat, that's because you have extra added normal force being applied to you. So that normal force is really the net, or helps to determine what the net force is on you, that's acting on you. Okay, so here we got our first one already done. You feel a weight because of the normal force. If you were in an elevator and the elevator cable snaps, this has never happened, not once, ever in the United States. Elevator cable snaps, the emergency brakes fail, you and the elevator car fall down. The car is no longer supporting you with the normal force, so it's falling and you're falling at the same rate, so you fall the same acceleration downward, you increase your speed in the same way downward, and so you're floating inside the elevator car. What do you feel? You feel weightless. Does that mean you have no gravitational force? Of course not, because what's causing you to fall? The gravitational force. The feeling of weightlessness comes from the fact that there's no normal force. We need that normal force to feel like we have weight. That's the important thing, okay? So, any normal force at all can produce this. So you can see the normal force that's acting on you right now is from the floor, but here we can play around with those normal forces with the track and have some fun with it, make yourself feel a little weird with it. And that's what roller coasters do, right? Now we can use this for a specific purpose, and I've already talked to you about this just a little bit, but one of the most important things about living in space is that you feel weightless. Okay, so here is, let's say, a schematic of the International Space Station here, and here is you floating around inside. Okay, the International Space Station is being gravitationally attracted by the Earth. You are being gravitationally attracted by the Earth. I didn't draw those to scale, so don't freak out. And the Earth is somewhere down here. Okay. Do you have weight? Of course, you have weight, right? So the weight force, which is we've said is the gravitational force, is still the same. The gravitational force is something that you could determine with the law of universal gravitation we learned in the last video. Same thing for you, right? But why do you feel weightless? Why do you float around inside the tube? You float around inside the tube because, just like in Newton's cannon last time, the International Space Station is moving very fast to the side, you're moving very fast to the side, and so as you fall, just like you're in an elevator, you're falling towards the Earth, but you're moving so fast to the side that you don't ever hit the Earth, and so we say you're in orbit. Okay, and when you're in orbit, you're falling all the time. In fact, you fall your way all the way around the Earth. And so as a result, you're falling, the International Space Station is falling, there's no normal force, so you feel, I'm going to put this in quotes, I don't normally like quotes, but I'm going to do that because I want you to see how much I am trying to stress the fact that there is not really a weightless, that this is kind of a misnomer, okay? It's something that people use incorrectly. It's really normal forcelessness, but you can see why nobody says that, right? Normal forcelessness. I just made that up. Is really, that's what that means. So there's no normal force because the International Space Station is falling, you're falling, there's nothing to apply a normal force. But you can use the normal force, you can use this idea to be able to produce a sense of weight in space. And so it actually keeps astronauts quite a bit healthier if they have some weight to fight against. All day long, all you're doing, even when you're just standing around, your muscles are flexing against the force of gravity. And so you don't really have that in space because of this issue with normal forcelessness, if you will. You can use that to your advantage, though. If you build a circular space station like this, like a big circular space station, and then you cause it to spin, so you can see that it says rotation right there. You cause it to spin, that means anything inside the tube that goes all the way around has to have this normal force that we also call the centripetal force. You remember from the last unit, centripetal force causes an object to move in a circular path. And so to be able to get it to go around in a circular path inside that tube, there has to be this centripetal force. Well, guess what? That centripetal force, in this case, because it's acting from the floor upward, has to be a normal force. And if you feel a normal force, guess what? You feel the sense of weight. And so as a result, if you spin a circular space station like this, a torus-shaped space station like this, you can get astronauts to feel that sense of weight, and it keeps them a lot healthier, actually, and it allows them to come back to Earth in a much better shape than if they were just floating around for 3 months or 6 months or a year, like one guy just did. Anyway, so artificial gravity, this artificial gravity comes from the fact that the objects inside the tube here want to go in a straight line, right? That's that tangential velocity. They want to follow that path because of their inertia. But there's this gravitational force, centripetal force that's being applied to it that's causing it to go in a circular path. And as a result, it travels this way around the circular path. So here, it would still feel like it wanted to go in a straight line, like so. And it would do that all the way around here, right? It would still want to travel in a straight line, but the circular path the circular space station is not allowing that. And so as a result, there must be some centripetal force being applied, which is the normal force. And so if you spin it just right, you can spin that normal force and it feels like you have weight because of these concepts. And so as a result, we can create not gravity, but the sense of gravity in space away from a situation where you would have a large scale sense of gravity. So for people who are going to go to Mars, and the trip's going to take a year, part of the ship is going to have to spin, so you have some weight, because otherwise they wouldn't be very healthy when they got there. Mars actually has a significant amount of gravity. Anyway, so sorry this was a little long. Hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.